Imagine stepping into the silence of your own mind and finding, at its center, a room lit by a blue flame that should not be there. With every step you take, the air vibrates as if something ancient were breathing all around you. Suddenly, you notice that the flame begins to change shape. It takes on the exact image of the fear you have been repeating for months. It is as if your unconscious had sculpted a creature out of everything you keep trying to avoid. In that instant, a sharp duality appears. On one side, the person you would be if you fully trusted yourself. On the other, the life you are secretly creating without noticing. And then the question falls like a strike of lightning. What have you been repeating in secret that is slowly becoming your destiny? A hidden principle hangs in the air, as if everything you think and feel were an order given to reality itself, and a silent promise rises from that same place. There is an ancient code capable of dissolving this flame and lighting another in its place. Today, you are going to understand how that code works, and once you see it, you will never look at your mind in the same way again. Inside you there is a temple with no doors, where every thought lights a torch and every emotion draws symbols on the living walls of the mind. When a dominant idea sits on the central altar, everything else quietly bows to its hidden command. The image is simple, but exact. The conscious mind observes, the subconscious mind executes, and the larger field around you arranges paths that you have not yet learned how to name. The dominant idea is the flame that decides the color of the shadows and the rhythm of the steps inside this inner temple. It governs even before you realize you placed it there. Modern science echoes this invisible architecture. Amit Goswami, theoretical physicist, states in The Self-Aware Universe that consciousness is the ground of being and participates in the collapse of possibilities. In practice, whatever you keep as persistent focus becomes the reference point around which your inner world organizes every choice. It does not matter if it is desire or fear. Emotional repetition works like a command. That is how a thought becomes structure. The subconscious receives the dominant pattern and behaves as if it were law. Carl Gustav Jung describes something similar when he talks about complexes and the organizing power of the unconscious in The Nature of the Psyche. For him, anything that repeats with emotional charge becomes a nucleus of meaning that attracts equivalent experiences. These nuclei act like psychic orbits. You circle around them without noticing, repeating situations that look like coincidence but are actually inner coherence. They are not punishment. They are living mirrors of what occupies the center of the mind. The Hermetic principle of mentalism illuminates this mechanism with calm precision. Everything begins on the plane of mind, and what is born there flows down to the other planes like an inevitable river. When your dominant idea is fear, the inner temple fills with symbols of threat. When it is confidence, the same temple becomes fertile ground for unexpected paths. This law does not come to intimidate you. It comes to reveal responsibility. It shows that the world is not the one deciding. It is the quality of the altar you keep burning inside. As the Kybalion teaches, the all is mind, the universe is mental. The Kybalion. This sentence is not a poetic metaphor. It is the key that explains why what you repeat becomes destiny. If the universe is mental at its root, then your mind is a microcosm of it. Every dominant idea is a seed that will inevitably sprout in the soil of the subconscious. Emotional repetition is the water. Attention is the light. Fear, when constant, becomes an invisible gardener. Now breathe and ask yourself, what idea have you been feeding in silence? What emotion returns night after night and sits on your inner altar? What image you can't stop seeing, no matter how much you try? And what kind of life is being shaped by that repetition? If you want to understand the principle moving all of this, there is a key that needs to be in your hands. And before we move on, remember to support this work. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep this flame of knowledge alive. Inside the mind, there is a silent garden where old seeds keep sprouting, even when you believe you have already moved past your history. Every phrase or glance you received in childhood became a hidden root in that soil. You grow up, change addresses, walk through new cities, but the garden walks with you. In it, beliefs about worthiness, effort, money, and love stay alive like plants no one ever pruned. The dominant idea that rules your inner temple today was born there when you still had no filters and everything went straight into the subconscious as a permanent command. The physics of Fritjof Capra helps us understand this invisible terrain. In the Tao of Physics, he shows that deeply connected systems keep repeating patterns even when their parts transform. In the same way, the child mind, open and permeable, absorbs family patterns and replicates them for decades. This subtle organization creates an inner field where certain reactions come up automatically, as if they were yours, when in truth they are inherited echoes. That is why you can live as an adult reacting to money, love, or scarcity exactly the way someone reacted around you long ago. Carl Gustav Jung calls these inheritances layers of the unconscious, a mixture of personal and collective experiences that shape attitudes without asking for permission. In The Symbolic Life, he explains that the unconscious keeps the images that formed us and keeps influencing choices until they are brought into the light. Those images act like ancient books stored in a private library. You may have forgotten their content, but they are still consulted every time life asks you to decide something. The Hermetic principle of correspondence sheds clear light on this dynamic. What is within organizes what is without, and what is without keeps reinforcing what is within. If the childhood garden was planted with phrases of fear, criticism, or scarcity, the adult will see the world through that same filter. Opportunities will feel rare, love will feel dangerous, prosperity will feel far away. Not because the world is that way, but because the inner garden reacts to every situation with the seeds that were planted before you even knew what a choice was. The Kybalion confirms this mirror through its famous axiom, as above, so below, as below, so above, as within, so without, as without, so within. The Kybalion, a simple statement that reveals why so many cycles repeat while you remain confused about the cause. Childhood does not stay in the past. It becomes your model of reality. Every phrase or look you received there turns into the template your subconscious uses to compare everything that happens now. Now, ask yourself with courage, what seeds were planted in you without anyone realizing it? What sentences did you hear so many times that they became silent rules? Which patterns keep returning as if they had a life of their own? And most importantly, if this garden was not planted by your own hands, when will you begin to cultivate it consciously? There is a dark corridor inside the mind where three shadows walk side by side. They look small, almost harmless, but each one holds a chain slowly wrapping itself around your inner field. The first is envy disguised as opinion. The second is tense effort crushing your chest. The third is fear, repeating stories of failure as if they were prophecy. When these shadows become dominant ideas, the inner temple tilts toward them, and your reality begins to respond in kind. They are not external monsters. They are forms you feed without noticing. Thomas Campbell, physicist and author of My Big Toe, explains that consciousness behaves like an information system in constant feedback. The dominant intention directs what the field perceives and selects. When envy, tense effort, or fear become repeated patterns, the mind interprets reality through that internal state. It is like carrying a negative magnetization that organizes which paths are even visible. Even when opportunities appear, the field chooses routes that confirm the emotional pattern you maintain, not as punishment, but as structural coherence. Joseph Campbell, scholar of myth, describes something similar when he speaks of the inner narratives that govern us. In The Hero with 1,000 Faces, he shows that each person lives out a private myth that shapes reactions, expectations, and decisions. Envy creates the story that others are always ahead. Tense effort creates the story that nothing counts unless it is hard. Fear creates the story that the worst is always around the corner. These stories become dominant tracks. You return to them even when you want a different route, because they are myths your unconscious already knows by heart. The Hermetic principle of vibration explains why these programs are so powerful. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Emotions are frequencies and thoughts are patterns that modulate those frequencies. When you vibrate in criticism, tension, or dread, the field answers in equivalence. It is not magic in the superficial sense. It is resonance. The inner temple emits a signal. Life returns experiences that match it. This principle does not judge. It simply responds to the rhythm of the vibration you choose to sustain, consciously or not. The dominant frequency always prevails over passing wishes. The Kybalion records this truth with accuracy. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. The Kybalion. This reveals that envy, tense effort, and fear are not just emotions. They are persistent vibrations, structuring your experience. The more you repeat inner images of lack, the more the subconscious understands that this is the reality it must reinforce. It does not distinguish desire from dread. It only amplifies what is constant, pulling your life toward the field where that vibration finds a match. Now look at the first shadow, envy. Every time you condemn someone else's prosperity, your unconscious registers that prosperity is something negative, incompatible with who you are. To stay coherent, it begins to block your own paths. Then, look at the second shadow, tense effort. If everything must be hard to have value, the subconscious creates hardness. It obeys the story you repeat with emotion. Finally, see the third shadow, fear. It does not only anticipate loss, it builds the inner scenario that magnetizes those losses as a likely outcome. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, where are these shadows hiding inside your temple? What stories do you repeat when no one is listening? What scenes do you replay so often that they already feel inevitable? And more. Which of these vibrations are you willing to release today to open space for a new magnetization? Because if the field answers what you sustain, what kind of field will appear when you change the nucleus that vibrates inside you? There is a sacred instant between the last breath of wakefulness and the first step into dreaming. In that threshold, the mind stops being a noisy city and becomes a silent cinema where everything you project gains texture, color, and density. In this moment, the subconscious sits in the front row, attentive, receptive, vulnerable like freshly turned soil waiting for the next seed. This hypnagogic state is an open doorway. The image you place there becomes reference, and the reference becomes law. That is why the mental movie before sleep is more than a technique. It is a ritual of inner transmutation. Fred Alan Wolf, theoretical physicist, teaches that consciousness shapes quantum collapse and organizes possibilities according to sustained intention. In this pre-sleep state, when brainwaves slow down, your intention stops being just thought and becomes a vibrational structure. The image felt in first-person works like a vector pointing probabilities in a certain direction. The subconscious, unable to filter sarcasm, fear, or negation, records only what you feel as real. That is why the mental movie must be lived from the inside, not watched from the outside. The body needs to believe so the mind will accept. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, describes how guided imagination can sustain a soul even in the darkest conditions. He explains that when the mind sees the future in an embodied way, it finds direction, strength, and coherence. In the mental movie, this direction becomes even deeper. It is not enough to see a scene. You must feel it on your skin, the weight of an embrace, the texture of a conquered goal, the softness of your breathing after overcoming a challenge. Coherent emotion creates roots. It tells the unconscious, this is true. The Hermetic principle of gender maps this process beautifully. It states that all creation is born from the union of masculine and feminine principles within the mind. The image is the masculine principle giving direction. The emotion is the feminine principle that gestates and brings forth. Without image, there is no direction. Without emotion, nothing is born. The mental movie works because it unites these two movements in a single act. It does not ask for external approval. It impregnates the invisible with the vibration of what you choose to make inevitable. It is an act of silent creation, but immensely powerful. The Kybalion states this primordial force clearly. Gender is in everything. The Kybalion. This is why imagining is not just fantasizing. It is creating inner molds the subconscious uses to guide its responses. When you repeat this movie night after night, the deep mind begins to treat it as the dominant reference. It reorganizes perceptions, intuitions, and choices to align your life with the mold you presented to it. Not magic, obedience to structure. The subconscious follows what is repeated with emotion. In the ritual, the first rule is, be inside the scene. Do not see yourself from outside, like a character on a screen. The second rule is to embody physical sensations, the weight of a key in your hand, the touch of a surface, the smell of the air entering through the windows. The third is to activate coherent emotion, not manic euphoria, but the calm gratitude of someone who knows something has already unfolded. When all three layers align, the mental movie stops being fantasy and becomes an anticipated memory. The subconscious reads it as past, not as wishful thinking. Now, understand the rhythm. There is no need for tense effort or self-judgment. The movie must be repeated, but without anxiety. You plant it like someone who trusts the earth. Each night waters the seed. Each sensation deepens the root. Each emotion strengthens the stem. Do not turn the practice into a courtroom. Turn it into an altar. You are not trying to force the world. You are teaching your mind to remember what you truly want to live. Over time, the movie changes position. From imagination, it becomes the dominant track. From dominant track, it becomes the chosen reality. So ask yourself, right now, what scene do you want to consecrate every night? What future do you want your subconscious to treat as truth? What feeling do you want to inhabit as you fall asleep? And as you close the movie, breathe deeply. What happens when your entire inner temple starts to recognize this image as the origin of a new destiny? There is an invisible road that runs through the center of the mind. On it, you hold the map with both hands, trying to control every curve, every crossroads, every step. But there comes a moment when the wind rises behind you, as if something greater were breathing, repositioning the path without asking for your permission. In that instant, you understand that your role was never to manage every route. Your role is to choose the inner destination. The how does not come from the ego. It rises from the silent meeting point between the subconscious and the living field that surrounds it. When you release the how, the map rearranges itself. Max Planck, father of quantum theory, affirmed that consciousness is fundamental and that matter arises from it. This means that even when you try to control every step, there is a deeper plan reorganizing probabilities according to the inner state you hold. By fixating on a single path, you actually restrict possibilities that were already available. It is like attempting to cross an ocean with a route drawn by ruler, while invisible currents could carry you to ports you did not even know existed. Consciousness opens and closes paths based on the quality of your surrender. James Hillman, through his archetypal psychology, teaches that there is a daimon within, a directional force that guides you even when you feel lost. In the Soul's Code, he describes purpose not as a rational goal, but as an inner calling revealed through synchronicities, detours, and meaningful coincidences. When you loosen anxious control, this daimon finally has space to lead you to routes the ego would never have imagined. The how stops being a demand and starts becoming a dance between intention and mystery. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect illuminates this dynamic with precision. Your thoughts, emotions, and attitudes are invisible causes generating inevitable effects. But the effect rarely comes through the exact path the ego envisioned. It emerges from the sum of vibrations you sustain. When you cling to the how, you try to manipulate the effect. When you release the how, you strengthen the cause. Your vibration becomes purer, your focus clearer, and the field more available to options you could not see while held in the grip of anxiety. The Kybalion expresses this principle in a single sentence. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. The Kybalion. Creation does not depend on external details. It depends on the quality of the inner cause. When you fixate on the how, you are trying to control the effect. When you surrender the how, you refine the cause. The vibration becomes more coherent, the field clears, and life can respond in ways that are aligned with your essence, not with your fear. So, imagine the map again. You choose the inner destination, the frequency you want to sustain, the direction of your intention. The cosmic GPS, silent and accurate, recalculates the route every time you release tension. Sometimes it chooses shortcuts. Sometimes it opens doors you never dared to touch. Sometimes it removes people, brings others closer, creates encounters, displacements, unexpected moves. And all of this happens when you stop monitoring the process as if it could escape from your hands. Letting go of the how is not passivity, it is active surrender. You keep your intention clear and you walk. The field responds with synchronicities. You act with what appears. Life moves with you. When anxiety returns, the road narrows. When trust comes back, the roads multiply. This is the balance between inspired action and surrender, between what you decide and what is decided by something greater that has always been walking beside you. Now breathe and ask yourself, in which part of your life are you trying to control the entire path? Which desire are you gripping so tightly that you are suffocating it? What possibilities are you not seeing because you are insisting on only one route? And if life is already preparing something larger than you imagine, what happens when you finally release the how and allow the field, the daimon and your own inner temple, to guide you toward the destiny that has been knocking for so long? The reality you live today is the clear reflection of what dominates your inner temple. Repeated ideas become constant vibrations, and constant vibrations shape roads. It is not punishment. It is not random. It is not unfair. It is coherence between what pulses inside and what blossoms outside. When envy, tense effort, or fear become dominant programs, the field answers with delay, blockage, and scarcity. When image, emotion, and surrender align, life responds with synchronicity, intuition, and abundance. The turning point is not outside. It sits at the silent altar of the mind, where the dominant idea is chosen. Now you know that every repeated thought is a seed, every emotion a root, every vibration a call. And the subconscious is not interested in your ruin or your success. It simply obeys what you sustain with consistency. If you created your reality without realizing it, you can also recreate it with lucidity. That is the deep power Hermeticism reveals. You are not a victim of cycles. You are the guardian of the temple, and the temple responds to every symbol you light up inside it. So ask yourself with honesty, what scenes have you been repeating in secret? Are they memories, fears, or possibilities? Are they echoes from childhood or visions of the future? Are they old shadows or images you now choose with love? The mental movie you project at night becomes the dominant track guiding your days. And what you consecrate in that moment shapes the type of destiny that comes toward you. That is why this ritual is so powerful. It is a pact with the version of you that already exists in the invisible. If this content touched your inner temple, honor the journey. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs this key. Every action you take helps more seekers find this path and strengthens the Hermetic wisdom field we are building together. And remember, in the pinned comment you will find the ebook, The Key to Prosperity. This is a tool to sustain the vibration you chose to awaken today. As you study these materials, something inside you reorganizes. A route lights up, a cycle closes, This video is just one step on the staircase. The next one completes the movement we began here. It deepens what was opened, expands what you felt, and reveals the next level of conscious creation. The journey does not end, it unfolds. And you are ready to take that next step. Until our next initiatory encounter, on the path of secret Hermetic wisdom,